Good. How are you?
Morning, Paul.
I have an opening quick shot that's educational bounded here. I had a couple I was going to choose, but I thought Perez and I cleared one off the board. A recent survey of 500 top colleges found that 10% of the admission officers acknowledge looking at social networking sites such as Facebook to evaluate applicants. 38% of admission officers said that what they saw negatively affected the applicant. I think they're lying. I think it's more than 10%.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Would you?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I think 10% is way low.
Way low.
I think when in the more important the job, certainly if it's leaning toward security,
yeah,
and children and things such as that, but it's different areas. I mean, if you're looking for someone to be working at the fast food place, you're not going to be that. But on high-level jobs, I think they do some tremendous searching.
I agree. And that's one thing I tell you, raising two girls, I said, be careful what you put on Facebook.
Absolutely.
The world's changing.
Absolutely.
That's the first place you're going to look.
And if you're going to get in politics, you better it's going to be there for a while. Well, it's good to have you guys. There's so much to talk about. First of all, we were talking off the air that you guys had an interesting invitation from somebody looking across the United States of America and saying, boy, how is Mississippi doing what they're doing? And then invite you to come and tell them that.
Absolutely.
Tell me about that.
Well, we were honored to be invited by Alaska, who is apparently about the 51st, if you will, according to their state commissioner. And so he asked us to come up and speak to all of his superintendents and then also speak to the Joint Senate Ed Committee because they're trying to put together a piece of legislation and wanted to know more about our Literacy-Based Promotion Act and our Early Learning Collaborative Act and taking a look at all of our results. You know, how did we get to where we are? And you know, we were there, Paul. We were there when I got here in 2013. We were 50th, and now we are ranked 39th in the nation. And I told them there's no easy fix. There's no silver bullet. A lot of good strategies and a lot of good policy put in place, starting with the legislation.
Can't believe you've been here 8 years.
Yeah, do you
You're
believe
developing
that?
a twang, you know.
That's what my daughters say to me.
Mom, you just don't sound the same for some reason. You take that as a compliment.
I absolutely do. Proud of my
Pete, what was
Mississippi.
was that the first time in Alaska?
Yes, first time in Alaska.
What did you think?
I loved it. I would love to go back.
Temperature was a little bit different, wasn't it?
Temperature in the mid-50s, about 19 hours of daylight every day.
Yeah.
So body had to adjust a little bit, but the scenery, the mountains, the water, the lakes, everything was just.
I think one of the things that I found so interesting is that they have maximized these towns like Ketchikan and places like that.
In Juneau, yeah.
They have maximized that period of time where they can, because it doesn't happen 12 months a year. They shut down when it gets too cold, but they've maximized tourism.
Right.
Oh, it's unbelievable. I mean, you're exactly right. It is the tourist place. And we spent, part of our time, we flew into Juneau to meet with the superintendents and then flew up to Anchorage because that's where their legislature is. And tourism is a huge, huge piece of what is going on. And with COVID, it shut a lot of that down. Yeah. They were saying that normally at this time of year, they would have X number of cruise ships like parked in the harbor.
I think when we were there were like 4 or 5 cruise ships in a row.
Yeah,
just like it's like parallel parking.
Yeah, he said they could dock 5 to 6 cruise ships a day.
It's amazing.
Between 15 to 20,000.
Let me jump into first of all the COVID deal here. Is where are we now, and from your perspective or from the Office of Superintendent of Education?
Well, school started. Almost all schools are in play. Obviously, there is a lot of concern about the rise of COVID cases with the Delta variant. And I think the superintendents are doing the very best that they can for social distancing. Some are mandating masks. Some are letting that be optional. And that has been a local decision. That is not something that we at the state have mandated. We have encouraged them to follow all CDC and Department of Health guidelines. And in fact, Dr. Dobbs is going to be meeting with the superintendents tomorrow via Zoom to talk about the rise in COVID and some of his concerns and to pass on to them some pieces of advice around how to deal with this rise as it's coming on.
Are they still doing the sanitary practices as they were doing, wiping things down?
Oh, heavens, yes. I mean, I think
or have they gotten back to that?
I think that's exactly right. I think that any superintendent is looking about social distancing. They're still looking at contact tracing. I think they've changed some of the rules and regulations around quarantining, depending on who is wearing a mask and who's not wearing a mask, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But the superintendents are putting all that in play.
It is a factory for colds and things like that in these daycare centers.
Absolutely.
Our 4-year-old grandchild has had some symptoms yesterday, and find out today, but only about the third day back to daycare, and it's one of those things where you have to be strict on just about everything. But as far as the mask, it's kind of hard to get a 4-year-old, 5-year-old to wear a mask.
It is, and I think that everybody is, anxiously awaiting the ability, at least, to have a vaccine for under age 12, because anytime you're talking about under age 12, you're really talking about pre-K through just about grade 8, and that's where the masking and the social distancing is really going to be very important.
What about the Department of Education itself? You guys are
oh, absolutely. We require masks to come in. We limit the number of people that we outsiders, if you will, into the building, and our building is cleaned on a regular basis.
I got word this morning, and I think this one came from a Memphis media or North Mississippi, that there's some restaurants now are beginning to say we're going to have to shut down again, and some of them this time may not reopen.
Wow.
We have 65% of the people in the state who failed to get a vaccination.
I know.
65%.
I know.
Where are we going to be? And boy, you hate to bring this up, but we have gotten to the point where the military, many of the private concerns, businesses, from Home Depot and many others, and it's almost like when school's out because of snow, it's too many schools to mention. Now we've gotten to the point it's too many businesses to mention, but a lot of businesses are mandating, if you're going to work for us, you're going to have to get vaccinated. Where are we going to be as far as the teachers in the state? Is that something the legislature, the governor, or you as state superintendent?
I certainly can't mandate that. I mean, I don't know whether the governor would issue an executive order around that or not. We have been encouraging as many people to get vaccinated as possible.
You know what the numbers are?
Our numbers right in the department?
No, in the schools.
I do not know
what the average is?
I do not know that.
How many of those teachers are and again, before we even start talking about, here's my one rub on this one. Before we start talking about these young kids wearing a mask to teachers who are not vaccinated, that rubs a lot of parents the wrong way.
Well, and the medical professions are saying that the only way that you can protect children under the age of 12 is to surround them with vaccinated people. I mean, that's been the message. So we've been trying to say, please get vaccinated as many people as possible.
Do you think that schools could go back? What does it look like from your point of view right now as far as
we've had
distance learning?
We've got a virtual learning policy in place that we revised this past year, but a lot of districts have had to close grades, close schools already. And football teams have been in quarantine. I mean, even the Athletic Association has said, they came out and said that if you are going to be a virtual learning student only, that you won't be allowed to participate in athletics. So I think everybody's just trying to figure this out as we go. I think Dr. Dobbs is looking at it as to how much longer do we think this peak is going to hit in Mississippi. And unfortunately, it is impacting young children. I just read yesterday that the University of Mississippi Medical Center has set up an outside in their garage a center for COVID.
We mentioned that earlier. The feds are coming down to help. They're sending some people too, because our healthcare workers, are from nurses to doctors, are just physically depleted.
Exhausted.
We looked yesterday at 3,163 new positive cases. And when you say that, and I mentioned earlier this morning, when you're talking about COVID, you cannot base the severity of this or the importance of your vaccination on the less, because when you say 3,163 cases, new positive cases, that could be anywhere from slightly menacing symptoms to the morgue.
That's right.
So it's a wide gamut of that. Right. We have 160 of those cases in long-term care facilities. We had another 25 deaths. We've had 7,710 deaths now, COVID patients who have, by directives of their doctor, have sent them directly to the hospital, 1,378, which is a pretty high.
That is.
We have patients moved to the intensive care unit. We have a new high this morning of 388. Jeez. And we have patients now requiring ventilators, a new high of 249.
Wow.
All right, let's talk about this. You read the story a few moments ago that I did earlier on some of the things going on with CRT. What do you tell the many concerned parents in the state from your perspective as the state superintendent of education in our state? about CRT in schools in the state?
Well, it's not in any of our standards, whether it's social studies, social emotional learning, doesn't make any difference. We have nothing about that in our standards whatsoever. And I'm not hearing it. I'm not hearing people call me or email me, and lots of folks do, about it occurring. Now, that being said, we have no control over, obviously, what's happening in individual classrooms, but it's not risen to the level of us having to address it.
And I understand that simply because it's going to be up to the school boards, it's going to be up to the superintendents and those people. But in many cases in schools, and we've heard some in Tennessee, we've heard some in Alabama, they sneak it in, Pete, in different things. It's not called CRT, but it's the way it's being taught.
Yeah, and again, we've not heard any concerns here in Mississippi. Now, me being on the legislative side, I've heard some talk regarding legislation that could be coming down the pike, which that's certainly up to the purview of the legislature. But again, no concerns that we have heard regarding any teacher or anybody teaching CRT in Mississippi.
I will say this, and I can say the same thing, and usually if something like that happens, they're going to get in touch with me, and we will put a spotlight on that. The only thing I can ask the good people of this audience, white, black, men, women, doesn't really matter. If that happens, call us, let us know, and we'll shine the light on it and find out what's going on, because it doesn't help anybody in the state. So many other things going on as far as the first of the year. What's the other reports to report to the people that how the schools look? Where are we as far as standings? Can we assess the damage from the first quarantine?
That's a good question. We have our assessment results have come back. They're now in the hands of the districts to make sure that they're looking at their data to make sure that the data are accurate. And then we will be presenting those data to the board in September. And the preliminary results, Paul, I mean, we dropped, but not as significantly, I think, as people were expecting. And so I don't have the final results to give you today, but I'll be more than happy to come back and discuss those.
When do you think they're going to be coming in?
September board meeting.
I got to want. Did we have 3 more schools or 2 more schools move to the full year format?
We did. We had Gulfport is one of them that I know has moved. And in fact, I just talked to Glenn yesterday, and he's saying things are, other than the COVID issues, obviously, that all the superintendents on the coast are facing right now. Well, throughout the state, he's been pleased with the way the way things are going.
You think this is going to be one maybe to catapult some of the other states, some of the other school districts?
I do. I think when people realize it's not 365 days a year, because, I mean, anytime you hear about year-round calendars, they think it's, oh, my God, it's 12 months. But it's not. It's really, and what Glenn has done, and, same thing with Lee Childress in Corinth, the part of it that's sort of the beauty of these schedules is that you have the 9 weeks on where everybody is inside the classrooms, and then the 3-week, they call it the intersession, that allows them to work with kids that need additional help or work with those kids that need to be accelerated, and it gives teachers an opportunity to earn extra pay. So, and it runs into the summer. Typically, almost everybody has the month of July off, and then it starts all over again. But the feedback that we've gotten and the feedback that the superintendents, I think, have gotten, and each one of them did exactly what they should have done, spent a year with their communities, letting them know, educating them. But the feedback's been really very good.
Is there something they have to file with the Department of Education?
No,
they
not
just
at all.
Do this on their own?
Absolutely.
I think branding, Pete, that's something you guys need to brand it better, not call it the full year calendar, call it the additional vacation calendar.
That would be one way to put it. Yeah.
Put a different term on
That's
that.
right. That's right. But the thing about it is they're still giving kids 180 days a year, but they're giving some kids up to 200 days a year. And that's really where you're starting to see, I think, more the difference in children that are struggling when they get more school.
You guys have gotten a boatload of money. I mean, there's money all over the place.
Yep.
Give me an assessment of where we are with that, how it's being used, and who's doing the overlook or the checks and balances.
So there are checks and balances because the federal government's requiring that. All of the monies have now been made available to the districts. I just refer to the buckets as ESSER 1, 2, and 3. I know they each have different names, but it's easier for me just to whichever came in first, second, and third. And there are criteria by which they have to use to spend those dollars. So the latest bunch of money, a lot more flexibility, meaning that some districts are using it to replace HVAC systems, to upgrade, add-on additions even to buildings to provide more space, as well as additional kinds of technology. We're looking at the purchasing of high-quality digital content, so that all the kids now have devices through Mississippi Connects. So how then do we get more content into the schools and into the districts? And that's part of our dollars that we're using to do that as well. High-dosage tutoring is another one. We are going to be putting out an RFP.
Whoa, high-dosage tutoring.
Mm-hmm. So if you've got children that are really struggling in a particular area, we're going to put out an RFP to see. There are companies now that are offering that across the board, K-12, in all subjects. And so you can then use those dollars then to purchase those tutors to work with individual children. That? Yeah.
I do like this one. Double back on the year-round format. I love some of the flexibility it allows you for the kids who need that optional tutorage.
Yes.
When you were talking about that they can get that during that time off. Teachers can pick up extra dollars during that time off. So there's a lot of different options or flexibilities that you can't do with the regular.
That's exactly right. That's exactly correct.
It's going to have to be. I think it's going to have to be the Kickstarter on this. You're going to have the parents just at a meeting or something get that ball rolling to take
and that's the beauty, I think, of both those superintendents who've spent that time with their communities, because they can show them the value of that, and then it's not a top down. It's really a group effort coming around the community with the superintendent, with this calendar.
Let's talk about Holmes County, because that's a terrible situation there.
Yes,
and it's not getting any better.
No. So we have recommended that, and the governor has signed the declaration of emergency for Holmes County. We have the superintendent that was there has been removed. The board that was there has been removed.
Her contract has been canceled.
Correct.
So she no longer receives a paycheck.
Correct.
She was getting $170,000.
Correct.
Now I understand this, that in the real world, I don't know if anybody could go in there and turn that around quickly, but $170,000, you almost want to, if we're going to pay you that kind of money, you better work miracles.
Well, the beauty of how the legislature allowed us to change the law, because remember, Paul, it used to be we would just put a conservator in there, and the conservator would just focus on clearing the accreditation standards. We asked the legislature, and they changed the law, so now we can select a superintendent to put in there to focus on instruction while they're clearing the accreditation standards. And
so
that superintendent,
what's going to change? What's the difference?
But here, the beauty of it is
go ahead.
I'm sorry. The law says now that superintendent must stay there until that district is a C or higher for 5 consecutive years. So now we are focusing on the instructional aspect of Holmes, which definitely it's been an effort. I don't know how long.
You go back and look at the others that have gone through this path.
Yes.
Have they been successful?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Margie Pulley up in Tunica, even the Noxubee superintendent before he left, got him out of debt.
Why wouldn't we look at a charter system there?
Charters are certainly an option.
FDIC.
Must be the company you're keeping.
Probably so. We were talking about this Oregon thing. I can't find that one, but Oregon's done that.
Yeah.
You've read that?
Yeah, I saw that where Oregon's come out and said that their high school seniors don't have to be proficient in math and reading in order to graduate.
Anything. I don't think they have to be in life. We just want to get you in here. But, I mean, basically the same thing was going on in Holmes County, and they had 124 teachers who weren't even certified.
Correct. And they had over a third of their high school seniors that walked the stage that did not have the credits to walk the stage.
So are they going to get pulled back in?
No,
or
there's not really any. It's the same thing, we have found in other jurisdictions, unfortunately, but we can set the stage.
Let me ask you this one, because of limited time here. On the speaking of critical shortage, you're certainly going to have one now. How do you replace those teachers? In 124, they don't have that many students up there, but
no.
Was that most of the people there, or most of the teachers?
Most of the teachers there.
What are we doing? Is any of the money that's coming into the Department of Education have anything to do with addressing the critical shortage in some of these depressed areas?
Yeah, so
of teachers is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, not any of this federal money. That's the latest rounds of money, but the legislature has been very aware of what we call the critical shortage areas and critical shortage subjects to teach, and they have put laws on the books to incentivize teachers to go in these critical shortage areas to teach. Like right now, If you're a national board certified teacher, you get a $6,000 stipend for the year. And if you go and teach in one of these critical shortage areas, they'll tack on another $4,000. So you can come in making $10,000 right off the bat before you're talking about any salaries or any local supplements that could also augment your salary. So there are some incentives on the books to entice teachers. It's just we've got to figure out how to get them there other than money.
Did you guys see in the teaching professions, as we go back to school, maybe some of the teachers, well, I'm sure could be young, maybe not, who've decided I just don't want to go back, just like other areas of the workforce?
Yeah, I think there probably were some. We're not hearing that across the board. Actually, even teachers on my teacher advisory council were saying that they had thought about retiring and then decided no, they were going to stick with it. So I think it probably varies area by area.
Pete?
Yeah, I was going to say, Paul, one of my former jobs, I was a press secretary for Governor Haley Barbour, and he did it.
That was 1737.
That was a while back. But we did a study during that time around teachers and sort of why do they leave, like between the 0 and 5 years of their teachercy, and oddly enough, money was not the number one issue. It was support
from the administration
by the administration that they felt like they had the lack of. So I think with more and more professional development that the department's putting down for administrators on down, you see more and more teachers stand in the classroom. You see more and more students graduating and staying in school. Our dropout rate is low, graduation rate is high, and so we put this comprehensive plan together that we've been implementing now for the past 8 or so years, and you see the results of it.
It has been amazing. We were talking about 8 years, but it's been amazing, the narrative in this 8 years. Just a few years ago, we would be talking about spending that extra dollars on fortifying schools because of shootings, and now we have another invasive enemy, and that is COVID. So things have changed, and it has just been remarkable. What to Dr. Carey Wright? What's your feeling that where this is going, and do you think in the next 2 or 3 weeks we're going to be able to make this without some drastic changes?
I think so. Dr. Dobbs seems to think so too. I think that, and he'll be the one to speak to that. But I do believe that he's seeing the peak. I'm going to say between the next 4 to 6 weeks, and then if we can get to the other side. But it's going to take a lot of effort on everybody's part, and I think that's the part that we're in this together. And so as much as we can get people vaccinated, as much as we can continue to encourage social distancing and mask wearing, that's about all we can do to try and make this through.
Well, one of the things and I want to talk to him about it too, who can get the booster shot now. And there are a lot of people out there who've had the vaccine and have weathered this. And there are a lot of different situations. For me, I've been in areas where we've had, a lot of people that you would think, okay, this is kind of in Neshoba County. We were there, and it's the number one county now. So,
I tell people all the time, Paul, whenever they say booster shots are ready, I'm first in line.
Yeah,
that's it.
Sign me up.
Well, I'm second. That's you're third.
I'm third.
Perez, fourth. We got a line for. We have
Tell
a line.
Dr. Dobbs he's got a line.
We got a line for me. Guys, it's always good to have you.
Thanks
very much.
Paul. Thanks so
Be careful,
much.
Stay safe.